So with that, I'm just going to turn things over to Graysen Pack and take it away, Graysen.
In today's call, we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to start off by talking about content controls, how they work inside Microsoft Word and the PERRLA add-in, and why we use them. They're going to be talking about one of our new features, Advanced Edit Mode, and what it brings to the table. Then we're going to go through a few of the pre-submitted questions that you guys emailed in. And then, like I said, we're going to, like Cliff said, we're going to answer any impromptu questions that you have for us. So with that, some of the pre-submitted questions that we got, just so you know what's headed your way. One, using multiple references with a single author, so how the PERRLA handles that currently and how it's going to be handling it soon. Adding annotations to references like an annotated bibliography. In PERRLA Online, how we save your paper and have backups of it. Where you can find save references you've created in previous papers, and then copying and pasting text for discussion posts. So those are some of the things that we're going to try to touch on lightly. But to begin with, we're actually going to be talking about content controls. And content controls are one of the things that we know a lot of new users who come to the add-in for Microsoft Word or PERRLA for Word add-in have questions about, because it's something that is brand new to the add-in. And if you're a legacy user, this may be one of the things that may be more confusing for you than most. So we're going to talk about what are they, why do we have them, and why do we use them, and then how do you work with them when writing a paper using PERRLA inside of Word. So to start with, what is a content control? Well, a content control is essentially just a box that we're allowed to put around content in your paper that allows us to insert things like citations or references into your text. And it also allows us to know where that content is in your paper. So that kind of covers both what it is and why we have them. We have them because we need them to be able to keep track of the citations and references and other elements of your paper in order to be able to properly make sure that they're all formatted correctly for the APA and MLA. So if you have a reference that you've added to your paper and created a few citations for, but then you realize you have a typo in the author's last name and you need to edit the author's name, well, you can do that using PERRLA, and we're going to automatically go through and update all the citations for you to make sure that they are matching the reference that you've edited in your paper. And we're able to do that using content controls. Another instance where a content control is really useful is when you have an author, like a group author, that has an abbreviation. So if you're citing the American Psychological Association, we all call it the APA. Well, the first time that you cite that reference, it's going to say American Psychological Association and have APA at the end. But then for all the subsequent citations, it's just going to use the abbreviation APA. And content controls allow us to know which citation comes first and which ones come later so that we can create and put in the correct citation for you. So let's hop over to Microsoft Word and actually see where content controls are used in our paper and how we can work with them. So there's 3 spots in your paper where a content control is going to be used, it's going to show up. The first one is in the title page for your paper. And any of the elements that are specifically asked for a research paper by the APA. So this is a student research paper. And so it's asking for a specific set of content. Those items are going to appear inside these boxes, inside content controls, inside your paper. On a Mac, these are going to be a light blue color. And if you're on Windows, they're going to be just a solid gray. The second place you're going to see a content control is with citations inside the body of your paper. And so anywhere that you have a citation, because that's an item that we know has to be formatted in a specific way, and we need to be able to keep up with to ensure it's formatted specifically, it's also going to appear inside a content control. The third spot where you're going to find a content control is in the references. And this is really for the same reason. We need to know where those references are, and we need to make sure that they are properly formatted for the APA or MLA format. And content controls allow us to do that. One of the other things about content controls is that the text inside of them is locked down and protected. You know, we've been helping students write papers for over 20 years now, and we have seen students shoot themselves in the foot by accident in all sorts of ways. And so they take and they maybe accidentally delete half of a reference, or they change the formatting by mistake. And what happens is that then they submit that paper, and then they may lose some points for their formatting because it wasn't quite up to spec. Content controls allow us to protect that content to make sure that it stays properly formatted for the APA and MLA formats, so that way you don't accidentally change something and lose points when you submit it to your professor. However, that also means that Word has got this really strange bug that kind of also catches up with us. So like I mentioned, the content is protected inside of content control. So if I place my cursor here inside the citation, first I know it's inside of content control because I can see the box around it. So now I'm just going to hit a few keys on my keyboard. As you can see, nothing happens because that content is protected. Now, this is where Word has a really weird bug that if we could do anything to change this, we absolutely would. And we've actually sent it to Word a few times as a bug report to see if they could change it. But we like to think of content controls as greedy, meaning they like to suck up the space on either the front or back end. So in this sentence here, which is a beautiful sentence to write your sentence, I'm going to place my cursor right between the parentheses at the end of the citation and the period. Now, the content control only stays around the citation itself. So it goes from the first parentheses to the last parentheses. But because it's greedy, when I place my cursor between the parentheses and the period, it thinks that I want to place the cursor inside the content control instead of outside of it. So for instance, if I didn't have this period here, and I wanted to place my cursor at the end of this sentence, because it's right next to that content control, Word thinks that we want to place our cursor inside the box instead of out of it. So if I want to now take and type that period, it's not going to let me because it's protected. However, the solution is actually quite simple, and there's two ways that you can do this. The first and the easiest way that I like to do is just to press the right arrow key on my keyboard. So I'm going to press the right arrow key once, and although my cursor hasn't actually moved any, for Word, it's gone from inside the content control to outside of the content control. And I know that because I no longer see the box around my citation. So now I can actually type that period. The other way that you can do, and some people really like to do this, is when they write their sentence, they add the punctuation first. So they go ahead and type the full sentence with the period, and then they go back and add their citation at the end. So let's take and we can add a citation here for BOM for page 54. And Perla always does this. It places the citation wherever we've left our cursor in the paper. And so because I already have that final period here, though, I can just place my cursor at the end, and I don't have to worry about it getting caught inside of the content control at all. And so now I can keep typing. So that's what content controls are. They're a way that allow us to insert text into your paper, like a citation or a reference, but also to ensure that that text is protected, that it follows the APA and MLA format. And then we also are able to keep up with where it is in your paper so that if you need to make any changes to that content, like editing your reference or citation, we're able to properly track where that is and make those updates in the right spots in your paper. Now, that said, we know that there are times where you may need to do something that is not APA compliant, and you can do that. And the way that you do that is you can remove the content control from that item. And there's two things that we're going to talk about. The first is removing just a single content control. So for instance, if I need to take and do something different with this citation that doesn't follow the APA specific guidelines, I can take and I can right click on that content control, and then I can choose remove content control. What that's going to do is it's going to remove the box, the protected content control around that text, and leave the text in place. However, that also means that that citation is now disconnected from Perla. So we're not able to know that it's there or to make changes to it in case you change something with that reference in the future. So this is one of the things that we really recommend users do at the end of their paper, after they've finished typing and they've gone through everything. Then if you need to make any additional changes to things that are protected inside of a content control, you can do that on a one-by-one basis. Now, this leads us into our new feature that we've added inside of Microsoft Word, inside our add-in called Advanced Edit Mode. Advanced edit mode allows you to remove the content controls from the body and reference sections of your paper, and it also prevents Perla from creating new content controls in the future. And one of the reasons that we came up with this is that we know that, there are times where you've got a lot of stuff that you want to change, or you may need to use a feature. Your professor is asking you to use track changes. And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit and how it and Perla kind of interact. But advanced edit mode takes, and it's going to sort of automatically go through and remove the content controls that are already added inside your paper in the body and reference sections. And then in the future, as you continue to add references and citations, they will be inserted as plain text instead of as content controls as well. So with advanced edit mode, you get the ability to edit the citations and references directly in your paper instead of through the Perla panels. So you can use Perla's references and citations panel to edit a reference or to edit a citation. But you can't edit in your paper because they're protected. So advanced edit mode is going to remove those content controls so you can edit them directly in your paper. And then that's the second thing. You get the removal of content controls just in the body and the references section. However, like removing individual content controls, you're going to lose a few things. The first is Perla's ability to keep everything up to date for you automatically. So because we no longer have those content controls, we no longer know where those references are. So if you edit a reference inside of Perla, we're not able to update it in your paper. Or if you have citations for that reference that need to be changed, we don't know where those are, so we can't update it for you automatically. The other thing to know is that this is a process that happens on a paper-by-paper basis, so you have to implement it for each paper that you want to use it on. And the process is irreversible for that paper. So once you've turned on advanced edit mode, you can't go back to normal edit mode for that paper. You would have to take and go create a new paper and copy and paste over to it in case you ran into trouble. So this is something we really recommend for people who are already really comfortable with the APA format, or they know that they've got a lot of things that they want to change. So when do you want to use edit mode? If you already know your way around APA, and then there are lots of things that you want to be able to change inside of your paper. If your professor asks you to deviate from standard APA formatting and a content control is preventing you from doing that, one rule we always say is, the APA is the way to go, but your professor is always the final word because they're the one who's going to be giving you your grade. So if they say to do something, if they ask you to submit your paper with purple font, well, purple font's the way to go. And then the last one that we're going to dive into is that if your professor requires you to use track changes when submitting your paper, and that you have a single paper that you're going to be going back and forth on using track changes with your professor. And I've got a little illustration here that's going to show you why we want to do that. So in every single Word document, there are sort of 3 layers to that Word document. The first layer are like the document properties, and these are all the hidden jargon things that go on behind the scenes that if you go to the info or you look at the properties for a Word document that are hidden behind there. The main layer of any Word document is the stuff that you actually see. So it's the content of your paper, text, images, headings, the stuff that's actually there and visible on the screen. And then there's a third layer that lays on top of that text, and it's like a visual embellishments layer. And this is where Perla's content controls live. They live on top of the text and are shown on top of the text. And so although we have, so you can think of the Davidson 2017 as being part of the body, and then the content control is laid on top of that text in the next layer. The problem here is that track changes also wants to live in that visual layer, and that layer is not flexible enough to be able to handle both content controls and all the visual changes that track changes enables. And so if you have them both on, they end up butting heads and cause problems for both of them. So when you're able to turn on advanced edit mode, essentially what it's going to do is it's going to remove the content controls from that visual layer and allow track changes to work in isolation so that there's no longer a conflict between the two. So with that, let me actually jump into the Word document and show you how track changes works and how you can turn it on. So here we've got just a normal standard APA 7 student research paper. I've got my traditional content controls available throughout the paper, including in my citations and in my references. Now you can access advanced edit mode in two different ways. One is through the hamburger menu inside of any of the Perla panels. So if I go up here to the menu icon, at the bottom here, I'm going to see advanced editing. And that's the first way that you're going to be able to access advanced editing mode. And the second is actually through the settings panel. When you go to the settings panel, at the top, you're going to see a link for use advanced edit mode. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click that. And it's going to open up the advanced edit mode panel for us. Now, there's a lot here because we really want to make sure you understand what's going to be happening when you turn on advanced edit mode. So we have a video where you can watch, and it's going to talk to you through all these details and talk to you about how to turn it on, what you're gaining, what you're losing, as well as some text that's going to give you some more information about what changes when you use it. But at the bottom, and we're going to click, it's going to say use advanced edit mode. So we'll click there. We're going to get a warning because, like I said, this is a process that is irreversible for this paper. So we want to make sure that you really know what you're getting into and that you're comfortable working with your paper after this. We are, and so I'm going to say yes, use advanced edit mode. So what this is going to do is it's going to go through my paper and it's going to remove all the content controls that are in the body and in the references section of my paper. So if I come back over here, I can see that Davidson, what was once a content control, is now just normal text because there's no box around it. And if I hit space, I'm able to type Daviston. There we go. So I also can come down to the references section and I can see that my references as well no longer have the content control around them. And I'm able to type and make changes to those. Now, this is where Perla still is able to function and do all the traditional things that you would expect. So let's come back to the references and citations panel, and let's actually add another reference. So we're going to add a reference from our library, and we're going to find one that's going to fit kind of right in the middle here. How about, here, this by Frakes, secret episodes that were never released. So we're going to add this to our paper, and Perla is going to be able to take and still add references and citations into our text properly and in the proper sort order, even though those content controls aren't there. However, if I were to take and come into the references and citations panel, if I made any edits here to this reference, so instead of J. Frakes, I wanted it to be Michael, Jonathan's lesser known brother. If I update this reference, it's actually not going to be able to update the reference inside my paper because it doesn't have the content control, so it doesn't know that it's there. I hope that kind of is making sense. So advanced edit mode is a feature that is going to allow you to work in your paper without content controls. However, it's a process that's turned on paper by paper. It's irreversible for that paper, and it's going to disconnect those items from Perla. So if you make an edit or a change in Perla to any of the items you've inserted into your paper, we're not able to automatically update them for you. So you would have to go into your paper and update them yourself.
Graysen, I think you're probably finished with this topic.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. So I'm jumping in. So you've been talking about Perla for Word and Microsoft Word's built-in content controls. Is there anything like that in Perla Online? Text that text or?
That is a great question. So Perla Online inside of your editor is going to use something very similar to content controls, but we don't inside our editor, you don't have the funky issue of the cursor wanting to get stuck inside a content control. However, when you go to export your paper, and this is where you do have a similar setup. So I've got my paper here. I'm going to come into export and print. We give you two options when downloading a Word document of your paper. So the first is just to download a Word file. And this is going to download the traditional Word paper that has content controls in it. So if you want to continue working on your paper using the Perla for Word add-in, you're able to do that. We also have a second option to download a simplified Word file. And what this does is it's going to create just a text-only version of your paper, and it won't include any of the content controls that are needed for Perla for Word, the Perla for Word add-in to work. So I'm just going to download the simplified word add-in. Let me move this little video out of the way. And let's open this. And I can see I'm still going to get a perfectly formatted paper. However, all of the content controls that would normally be there around these elements aren't part of the paper. And so it's just a traditional Word document that has none of the content controls in it. And so this is the comparison or the equivalent of the advanced edit mode as close as we have currently for Perla Online. Great question.
Another quick question, Graysen, is if I just saw how you can download a Word document. What if I just want to download the references? I don't need a title page. I don't want the body of the page. I just want references. What do I do?
That's a great question. So if you want just references, and this is one of the things that happens a number of times when somebody is needing to create like an annotated bibliography, right? It may just be a title page and then a references page with your annotations. All you're going to do is you're going to leave the body blank inside of the editor. So let's actually take, let's go and let's create a paper real quick. We're going to make a new paper. This could be an APA 7 student research paper, annotated bibliography. And we're going to say this is going to be due next Friday, and we'll create a research paper. Great. I've got my title page. I've got the body. Now let's just take and we're going to add some of the references. So we're going to add this Allen reference and Bellamy, and we'll throw in one more, the Daviston reference. So all three of these are going to be added into my paper and be finished here. And now let's add an annotation for each of these. So if I come up to the references menu option inside of Online, and I go add annotations, Perla Online is then going to give me a space where I can type the annotation for each of these. This is a great work. It's saving. Excuse me. Is a mediocre work. And this is a poor work. So we're just going to say we've got great, mediocre, and poor. So we have three references, and each of them have an annotation. So at this point, I can take and I'm ready to download my paper. Right now, there's not a way to remove this body section of a research paper. But if I go File, and we're going to download, or this time we're going to download it again as a simplified Word file. I open this up. I've got a paper with my title page. I've got the body section here. And then I've got my references with the annotations properly formatted in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to highlight, and I actually recommend turning on hidden characters because it's a little easier to know when you're deleting that page, that section break. So I'm going to turn that on inside the home icon. It's that little backwards P. I'm going to highlight this, press Shift, and highlight all of this, including the section break. And then I'm just going to delete it. And now I have a paper that is my title page and just the references. So that's the way you would do it in Perla Online. Inside of Perla for Word, you can create a student research paper, add your references. You're going to be able to add your annotations, which we'll go over in a little bit. And then you'll be able to delete the body just in this same exact way. I hope that's helpful. Great question.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So with that, we're actually going to take and we're going to switch over to talk about some of the pre-filled questions that people have submitted pretty quickly. So the first one is from Callaway. If you have multiple references in a paper by the same author, how does Perla handle sorting and updating those references? This is a great question, Callaway, and it's actually one of the things we're really excited to be working on currently. So right now, Perla, if you have, say, 3 works by Graysen, who's a brilliant mind, if I say so myself, inside of the same paper, APA requires those 3 references to be sorted by their date. And the first reference would include an A, the second reference would include a B, and then the third would include a C. So if our reference was going to look like, for instance, let's actually put one in here, Pack G 2020. Let's do this again. We'll just do it with 2. This first reference would be 2020A, and the second reference would be 2020 be. Right now, there's not an automated way for Perla to do this. However, in the coming weeks, we're going to be deploying a new update where we're going to be able to do this for you automatically. So you don't have to think about anything at all. We're going to be able to update your references and the citations, knowing that you've got references that have a similar author part of the reference, or in their citations. The citations may end up looking the same for both of them, and updating those years to be properly formatted for you without having to think about it at all. In the meantime, until we get to that point, the best thing that you can do is actually using the single to remove the content control on those references individually. So if I had, let me go ahead and add, I've got, let me add, we're in advanced edit mode here, so I can't do that. Because if I add a reference, it's not going to include the content controls. If I add a reference into my paper, any of the references have the content controls inside around them. And so if we were to right click on it, we would then see remove content control like this inside of that reference. And then we'd be able to edit that single reference. Like we said before, this is something that we recommend you do at the very end of writing your paper. That way you don't accidentally change it in the writing process or accidentally shoot yourself in the foot. So this is something that we've wanted to be able to do for a really long time, and for many technical reasons haven't been able to. But since we've moved over to our new reference engine, we're able to search for references. We're also able to do this for you, and we're really excited to be able to push this out pretty soon. Our next question is coming from Andreas. When creating an annotated bibliography, is it possible to keep the annotation and reference together, even when adding new references? Andreas, this is absolutely possible, and one of the cool things that Perla does. So each of these are references that we've added into our paper, and this is actually going to work. You know what? Let me create a new paper real quick, because it's going to be easier to see how this works. So annotations, and we're just going to leave the rest of this blank for now. Great. Here's our new paper. Coming to Perla, and we're just going to add a few references here to this paper so we can see it in action. So we'll add again this Allen, the Bellamy, and then I always like to add Funderburg. It's just a great name to my paper. So now I've got the Allen reference, the Bellamy reference, and the Funderburg reference. Now, just like similar to Perla Online, Perla Forward is going to give you the ability to add annotations automatically to your references. So if I come to the Allen reference here, I can add an annotation, and it's going to go ahead and insert a paragraph for me, and I can type my annotation. I also can do this manually if I want to. However, the thing that we really have to be careful of is that we set the paragraph we enter to the annotation style. So here's what I mean by that. We're going to come over to the Home tab so that you can really see this well. Inside of, I'm going to open up the Styles panel. These are all the text styles that we take and we add into your Perla paper so that we make sure we format all the parts right. If I place my cursor inside this reference, you can see that the style is APA reference. If I place my cursor here inside the annotation, it's APA annotation. And the reason we do that is so that we can differentiate between the references and the annotations. And it also allows us to differentiate between annotations and references that you may have manually typed in to your paper. So let's say I'm going to add in a manual reference after Bellamy. I'm going to place my cursor here. I'm going to use the right arrow key once to get out of that content control. And I'm going to press enter. Now, by default, it's going to stay on the APA references style, which is totally fine. It can do that. So we're going to say this is a Bellamy annotation. Okay. If I was typing in I could also type in, a reference that I already had and knew was formatted correctly, but we're going to say this is a Bellamy annotation. Now, I know you may be tempted to say, okay, well, this needs to be indented one paragraph. I'm going to use a tab so it looks like annotation. However, the problem is this is still an APA reference style. So Perla is going to think this is a reference that you've manually added into your paper. And so if you're going to manually add an annotation and not use the Perla references and citations panel, which we absolutely should, we need to make sure that we update this style using the text and heading styles dropdown. So I'm just going to highlight that paragraph, and then I'm going to come down and I'm going to choose annotation. What this is going to do, ignore this, that's part of my developer debugging stuff. It's going to set this to the annotation style. So now if I were to go in and I want to add a reference, let's say we're going to add a reference that's going to show up between Bellamy and Funderburg, like this Daviston reference, I can add this to my paper, and it's going to say, oh, this is an annotation paragraph, so don't think about it when trying to put your reference in the right spot. Only look at the paragraphs that have the reference style associated with them. And so by doing this, you're able to allow Perla to properly distinguish between the annotations and the references. And even if you add those things manually, we're going to be able to put your new references in the proper location. So number one, always use the Perla References and Citations panel to add annotations for a reference. Two, if you do add that annotation manually, be sure that you update it to the annotation style using the text and heading styles dropdown in the Perla ribbon. All right, keeping us going. Andreas had a second question here that this is a really great one. If we accidentally delete a whole bunch of our work in a paper, and this is in Perla Online, can it be retrieved from your servers? Yes. So Perla really tries extra hard to save your paper every time you make a change. So anytime you add a citation, you add a reference, you update an annotation, you update the title page, you add a text or heading styles, we're going to be saving your paper for you, and we have a copy of it on our servers. So if somehow disaster strikes, you've accidentally deleted all of your paper and it's saved and you closed the browser, or the browser crashed and you lost a whole bunch of stuff, we have copies of every single save point of your paper on our server. And if you email our customer support team, which is support@perrla.com, they can see each of the previous versions of your paper and will be able to roll your paper back to whatever point you need. This is something that we're hoping to be able to roll out to give you guys more access to in the future. But for now, you can email the customer support team and know that we've got every single save state of your paper, and we keep those for 30 days. And so you've got a ton of backups that are there and available, and we can help you get to the version of your paper that you need. Great questions. Two good ones from Andreas. All right, one from Valerie here. We're going to got just a few more. We're going to open to impromptu questions. So where can I find the references I've made in previous papers? One of the great things about Perla is that whenever you create a reference, we're saving that reference inside your reference library. So you guys have seen this a few times already, but when you go into a new paper, you can see all of the references you've created in previous papers that match that format inside of your reference library. So I can just go add reference from library. I'm going to be able to see all the previous APA references that I've created. This is an APA 7 paper, and so most of these are APA 7 references that I've created. However, there are a few that come from previous versions, like an APA 6. So these are 3. The Holy Bible is a really easy reference for us to create when we're testing things. And so you'll see if it's an APA 6 paper that needs to be updated to APA 7, it'll say update and add to paper. And that'll allow us to go through and make sure we have all the proper information for the updated APA 7 version. But we save every single one of your references inside of your Perla reference library, and that's synced across Perla Online and the Perla for Word add-in. All right, well, this is the last one that we have pre-submitted. When copying and pasting a discussion post, I sometimes get weird formatting. Any tips? Absolutely, Anna Maria. So one of the best tips that we have when you're copying and pasting, especially when you're creating a discussion post, which Perla allows you to create discussion posts as a paper type. And these discussion posts take and they remove the page breaks out of your paper. So let's just call this discussion post for 1 biology. We'll create this. It's going to take and it's going to create just the title, the body, and then it's going to put any of the references you add to this paper all on the same page. And what this does is it makes it really easy for us to be able to copy and paste the entire thing in one go. So if I've got to paste this into my online forum, that becomes quite simple. So I can take and I can highlight all of this, and I can just press Command C or Control C, or I can go up to Edit and Copy. And most school forums like Blackboard or things like that are formatted to work really well when you're pasting from Microsoft Word. But there are some that can be a little tricky. We get that. And it's just sort of the way that those platforms are built. We try to make it as easy and straightforward in Perla Online and in Perla for Word to copy and paste out of discussion posts. However, we don't have any control over what some of these schools end up doing. So our first recommendation is try to copy and paste out of a Word document. So if you're writing a discussion post inside of Perla Online, try exporting that as a Word document and copy and pasting from there if you run into trouble. You should be able to copy and paste directly from Perla Online without much problem. But if you do have trouble, try a Word document first. The second thing that we would suggest is actually, if you continue to have problems there, let's remove the content controls from the paper inside of Word. And so you can turn on either advanced editing mode to once you've finished your paper to copy and paste out of, or you can actually highlight all of this and then click remove content control, and that'll do it in one swift motion. We rarely see that cause any problems, but just in case, that's an option for you if you've tried the other things before. So that's our best tip. Try copying and pasting out of Word, and that usually gives us absolutely the best luck. All right. Those are all the pre-submitted questions that we have. Cliff, we have any fun ones that have come through in the chat?
I've been keeping up with them, but just for a really simple demo, show how when you have a reference and a citation in your paper and you want to get rid of that, show where they need to go in the side panel to remove a reference. They can't delete it directly, show how to remove a citation and a reference.
Absolutely. That's a great question. So I'm actually going to create one here. So let's add a citation. We're just going to say it's not a direct quote. Great. So we have our reference, and then we also have a citation inside of our paper. We can take, and underneath the reference, we're going to be able to see all the citations that we have for that reference. And if you're not sure where that citation is, you can actually go to the More icon and click Show in Paper. And it's going to highlight the citation. So if you've got like a 10-page paper, it's going to take you to where that citation is and then highlight it on your screen for you. So I know, okay, here's the citation I want. I can take and I can remove that from the paper by clicking Delete Citation. Now, what Perla does is whenever we delete a citation, we replace with the text, citation deleted, in all caps. And we do this because it's really important that you don't accidentally plagiarize. Plagiarism, at least when I was in school, that was a really big deal. And at my university, you could be expelled for 2 whole semesters if you were caught plagiarizing. And so to make sure that students who are using Perla don't do that or find themselves in that kind of situation, we're going to replace that text with citation deleted. So this is where my citation was. I either need to change this sentence so that I'm not quoting someone or I'm not using information from somebody else, or I replace this with a new citation as well. Now, the other part of this is that we can actually remove individual references as well using the similar format. So if we take and we come into the More icon beside that reference, I can click Remove Reference. And that's going to take and just remove the reference from our paper. Now, if that reference had citations as a part of it, so I went to remove the reference, but it still had citations in the paper, it's going to tell me and say, hey, there are still citations in this paper. If you remove this reference, it will also remove its citations out of the body of your paper and replace them with that same citation deleted text. So that way you don't accidentally remove the reference and then still have citations in the paper left behind. Great question.
Graysen, so, we have this issue that we're working on behind the scenes of, when you have a sentence where you're citing multiple studies, let's say, you've got multiple references that you want to cite in a single sentence. Right now, there's a little trick that you have to do to put those together. Can you just show that briefly?
Absolutely. So you alluded to this. This is one of the things that we've got on our high on our list of things that we're going to be rolling out that we really want to be working on is the ability to create and merge multiple citations together inside of a paper so that you're able to do that using Perla without having to do anything funny. However, let's say that currently we have a sentence. So according to A and B, Sasquatch is over 7 feet tall. Okay, so we've got a great piece of information, and we actually have two references where we need to, that we're going to be citing together for this information. So according to, here we go, Allen and Bellamy, Sasquatch is over 7 feet tall. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to add our citation for Allen, and we'll say this is page 3. Great. It's right here. We're going to place our cursor at the end and press the right arrow key once so that we know it's in the right spot. And then we're going to go add our citation from Bellamy, and this is actually from page 75. So we're going to create our citation here. Great. Now we've got two citations, and we've got them back to back. And this is where removing those individual content controls actually becomes quite useful. So I'm going to put my cursor at the end here. Doesn't matter whether it's inside or outside the content control. And then I'm going to hold the shift button, and I'm going to click before the first citation. If you wanted, you could also just kind of click and drag over these. Now I'm going to right click and remove content control. Okay. What this is going to do is it's going to turn both of these into plain text, but it's also going to disconnect them from the Allen and Bellamy references in our paper. So this is still one of those things we recommend you do at the end of your paper. So I could take and create both of these citations, keep on top of my paper, and then once I'm done, come back and merge these together. So now that we're ready to merge them together, though, we're going to highlight both. I'm going to click Remove Content Control. Okay, that's going to remove the content control from the Allen citation and from the Bellamy citation. Now, to make this APA formatting correct, we're going to remove both of these parentheses, add a semicolon and a space. And that's it. That is the proper way to merge multiple citations. It's a manual way with Perla right now, but in the future, in one of our updates, we're already working on laying the groundwork to be able to do this for you automatically.
If you don't mind, go show for new users how to use the autofill reference.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is one of the things that when we updated our reference engine for APA 7, it's one of the things that, man, we know users have really wanted to have happen for a long time, and we've really wanted to have happen for a long time. You know, Perla is really great about making sure that your references are properly formatted. But for many, many years, you've had to enter in all that information manually. However, with APA 7 inside Perla Online and Perla for Word add-in, when you go to create a new reference, we now have the ability to search for your reference. So if you're creating a book, a journal, or a website reference, the most common types that this accounts for over 95% of all the references made with Perla, a book, a journal, or a website, you can search by DOI, ISBN, author and title, or URL. So I've got actually over here, I was a little prepared just in case we needed this with a DOI. So this is a DOI for a journal article. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to paste this. I'm just going to use the keyboard shortcut of Command V or Control V on Windows and paste that DOI number in here. And now I'm going to click search. Perla is going to go out, and we recognize that as a DOI. So we're going to go to DOI, the Crossref, which is the world's largest DOI database, and the people who are actually responsible for making sure DOIs work. And we're going to say, hey, we've got this DOI. Can you give us the bibliographic information for it? And they say, why, yes, of course. Here you are. Now we take that, and we are automatically going to populate the reference wizard form for a journal article for you with all of the bibliographic information that we get back. So this is a journal article, and it's a single published journal article. But if we needed to make a change, we could change that here. And we can see that it's already filled in our contributor name of Richard Fitter. It's got the article title, Nessie and the Sasquatch. It's from the journal Oryx that was published in 1975, volume 13, issue 1. Pages 38 to 40, here's our DOI number. And then at the very bottom here, we can see a preview of this reference. So now I can click Next, and I can click Create. That's going to create the reference for us and automatically add it to our paper. So now, if I've got a DOI, an ISBN, author, title, or a URL, creating a reference becomes really simple. So let's try searching for an author and title. And let me look here. Don't Make Me Think, A Common Sense Approach to Web Usability. This is a great designer book by a guy named Steve Krug. And we're just going to search for Steve Krug first. So I'm going to click search. Now, because this is a name, we're going to go out and we're going to say, okay, let's search just for Steve Krug and see what kind of matches we can find. Well, it turns out this is a very popular name. So let's type, Don't Make Me Think. And I'm going to search again. Looky here, Don't Make Me Think, a book by Steve Krug. And this is actually the version that I've got. You can kind of see how it kind of lines up with the cover here. And so I'm going to, actually, this is it. Perfect, right here. Don't Make Me Think, Steve Krug. That's exactly the match I want. Perfect. So I'm going to say use this work. It's going to go through. It's going to pull that bibliographic information. I've got a book. All are part of a book. Steve Krug, Don't Make Me Think, revisited. And this has gone through, and Perla takes and does its best job at creating the proper title or capitalization for you. So as you know, APA requires to use sentence case. So only the first letter of the title or subtitle are capitalized and any proper nouns. So we're going to go through and try to take our best guess at that. But I can see here, this is perfect. I don't need to make any changes. I could change this if I needed to, if I needed to make that a capital M, but I don't. Publication year, we didn't find anything for that. So let me take and fill in. This actually came from 2014. So I'll fill that. Just missing piece there. It's the 3rd edition. That's correct. And then here is our publisher. Perfect. So I've got a live preview down here. I can see that. If there was no date, for instance, right here, our live preview is going to use the proper N period, D period, but we do have 2014. So I can type that in and go next. I can add any of this optional information that Perla lets you create. I'm going to click create. It's going to create that reference and it's going to add it to our reference section for us. Don't Make Me Think. So Perla's new APA 7 reference engine in the add-in and in Perla Online gives you the ability to search for books, journals, and websites using ISBN, DOI, URL, or author and title.
Hey, Graysen.
Yeah.
Can you touch on organizing references? I know that we've got, the ability to create tags, and I know that that's insufficient for, scholarly work, and that there's, talk of doing something more on that. You might address that, and that kind of ties into maybe EndNote. You talk about the differences between Perla and EndNote, and when people say, is Perla compatible with EndNote, what does that mean? And,
Yeah, this is one of the things that Perla and EndNote use 2 very different formats for their references. And so Perla and EndNote neither one are really set up to just sort of create a shared library of all of your references. However, with the third-party search, like we just said, if you have any references, the ability to create them very quickly with very little input makes it really snappy to be able to bring over any references that you may need instead of having to type them all out over again. Like Cliff mentioned, we do, when you're creating a reference or when you go to edit a reference, you are able to add some optional information for your references. So this includes a nickname. So if you, by default, we don't give your reference a nickname, so we show the reference as it actually will appear. But if you've got a bunch by a single author and you want to give it a shorter abbreviated nickname that's really clear for you, you can do that. And this is what we'll list inside the references and citations panel and inside the references module. And then you can also add tags to your references. And this is something that we do have ideas for in the future of being able to build this out and make it more hardy. But if you add tags to your reference, when you're inside the references module, especially in Perla Online, you can search for those tags and see the references that are using those tags pulled up. So, if you want to save a whole bunch of them for biology, you can search for biology and you're going to see all the references that either have biology in the name or that have biology as one of their tags. I like to keep my references as as they should appear inside of a work. But that's just the way that I think and I work, and we know that everybody thinks and works differently. And so we give these options to you here, so that you can do some work on maybe giving it a better name that you're going to be able to recognize more, or shortening it especially if you've got a work that's got 13 or 14 references or authors or contributors in it, like some scholarly journals and articles do. The nickname can be a really great way to find that. The other thing is when we talk about organizing, for a lot of people, the question is really, how do I find my reference again? And one of the things that we've done inside the reference library is we've really created a much faster version of being able to search for your references. And so if I want to search, say, for that Krug book that I just had, I can search, and it's going to search through my entire library on the fly. So if I search for Sasquatch, I can search for Sasquatch, and it's going to show me all the references that I have that have Sasquatch in the name. And these are sorted alphabetically by default. However, you can sort them by the date that they were created as well up here. So
for the date that you created them.
Yes, the date that you created them. Yep, the date you added them to PERRLA. Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking for something that you created last semester, by doing that, you'll be able to zero in on the
yes,
time period. Yeah.
Exactly. So if I change this to date created without a search, the last one I made was Krug, and before that was Fitter. And then see, I've got Fitter down here again, what we did the last webinar. But name and then being able to search, those are two things that really make it a lot simpler to not have to worry about creating a organizational system or hierarchy in addition to keeping up with everything else you're trying to manage. For us, it makes it a lot easier to say, you know what, we've got a search that works really well and really fast. And that's one less thing I have to kind of keep on my plate. But we do have nicknames and tags available for references as well.
Okay. That's all of the questions that we have in the chat room, Graysen. I don't know if anybody has anything. We've got like 3 minutes left in this hour. Our customer support team is awesome. Shane Brown is on here right now. He's our manager. And we've got 5 people in support that cover a 7-day per week time frame. And they're on until 10 o'clock every night. And there are always 2 working at the same time. So if somebody needs to jump on the phone with somebody and walk through some issue, that's always an option. We try to answer support via email because we can do that very quickly. Since we have all of the questions that we hear the most often, we've already got those written down, the best answers. So we can send those quickly and work efficiently, but we don't have a problem jumping on the phone with you. We can call you and set up a time that's convenient for you. I know a lot of our customers are working adults, so we might need to call you in the evenings. So that's not a problem for us. So just be aware that our customer support team is awesome and they're happy to help. So that's
absolutely. In addition to that, Cliff, we also have a number of resources. If you're up at 3 a.m. And our support team is already off the clock and deep asleep, like normal humans should be, and you need to try to find something, we've got our help center on our website. You can go to perrla.com and click help, or perrla.com/help. We've got a lot of really great articles and resources here that address the most common problems or questions that students ask, as well as a lot of stuff about how to write a good paper. If I'm unsure how to make a good outline or how to create an annotated bibliography or what's a good 5-paragraph paper, we've got some tips and tools there to help you through, really get your feet on solid ground.
I appreciate everybody coming today to see this. We will compile this and create a video with the offsets into the answers for the questions that have been asked for future viewers and for you if you want to go back and review this. So I can't thank you enough for being a PERRLA customer. It means everything to us. Small company, been around forever, and we hope to continue to be around forever. And we only exist because of your kind words to others about us, and we sincerely appreciate that. So everybody have an awesome weekend, and we'll see you back at work on Monday, wherever that may be.
Have a good one.
See you guys.